Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive. We're going to be exploring something pretty interesting today, the role of hype in the world of generative AI.
Oh, yeah, definitely hype. It's everywhere.
It really is. I mean, everywhere you look these days, someone's making some big prediction or promising the moon and back.
And it's easy to just roll your eyes and think, oh, here we go again, another overblown trend.
Right. But what we're going to dive into today is whether all this hype is actually doing us any good.
Because sometimes that excitement can actually lead to real progress.
Exactly. So we've got some excerpts from this Korean article, and it's titled AI Ayut Ko-Nudio, which translates to the positive functions of generative AI hype.
So they're not just talking about the downsides, they're actually looking at the potential benefits of all this buzz.
Yeah, and they make a pretty compelling argument for why hype, even when it's a little bit annoying, can be a driving source for innovation, especially in a field as complex as AI.
AI is definitely a space where things are moving so fast and there's much potential, but it's also easy to get lost in the noise.
Absolutely. So let's jump right into it. The article starts by highlighting some of those bold predictions we've been hearing about.
Oh yeah, the ones that make you go, really? That soon?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like Elon Musk predicting artificial general intelligence AGI by 2025.
2025? Wow, that's just around the corner.
I know, right?
Yeah.
And then you've got Leopold Aschenbrenner saying 2027, Ray Kurzweil betting on 2029 for AI surpassing human intelligence.
It's like a race to see who can predict the most mind-blowing future.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I can feel that way. And
Oh.
look, I don't know if any of those timelines are accurate.
I mean, it's all speculation at this point, right?
Right. But the article makes an interesting point. It says that these predictions, whether they're right or wrong, actually serve a purpose.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
Well, think about it. These bold claims, they grab attention, they get people talking, they attract investors.
So it's like hype is creating this buzz that brings in resources and fuels development.
Exactly. It gets people excited about the possibilities, and that can lead to more research, more funding, more brilliant minds working on solving these complex problems.
It's like a self-fulfilling prophecy in a way. The hype creates the conditions for progress to actually happen.
Yeah, it's like a catalyst. It gets the ball rolling, even if the path isn't always straight or predictable.
That makes sense. But what about when that initial excitement fades? We've all seen those hype cycles, right? Something comes along, everyone's super excited, and then it doesn't quite live up to the expectations and everyone's disappointed.
Oh, yeah. That's definitely a pattern we see with technology time and time again. But does that mean hype is ultimately harmful? Like, is it just setting us up for disappointment?
Well, that's where the article brings in this concept called Amara's Law.
Amara's Law. I haven't heard of that.
It basically states that we tend to overestimate the effect of a technology in the short run and underestimate it in the long run.
Okay, so we get all excited about the immediate possibilities, but we fail to see the long-term potential.
Exactly. And I think that's really relevant to AI. We might be disappointed if AGI doesn't arrive on some specific date, but that doesn't mean AI isn't going to have a huge impact in the long run.
So those moments of disillusionment where the hype fades a bit, those might actually be a necessary part of the process.
Yeah, it's like planting a seed. You don't see the full-grown tree right away. There's a period of growth and development that takes time.
I like that analogy. So even if AI doesn't magically solve all our problems overnight, that doesn't mean it's not going to change the world eventually.
And those periods where the hype dies down a bit, they give us a chance to reassess, to focus on the areas where AI can really make a difference.
It's like separating the wheat from the chaff. You know, the hype might bring in a lot of different ideas, but then we need that time to figure out which ones are truly valuable.
Right. And the article actually talks about this filtering process. They call it, what was it? Hands-on filtering.
Hands-on filtering. Interesting. So instead of trying to predict the future and filter out bad ideas from the start, they're saying we should embrace a more experimental approach.
Yeah, like let people get their hands dirty, let them try things out and see what works.
So it's less about trying to control the future and more about embracing the messiness of innovation.
Exactly. It's like with anything new, you have to experiment. You have to make mistakes to figure out what works.
It's like that saying, right? You can't make an omelet without breaking a few eggs.
Exactly. And the article uses this really great analogy. They compare it to building a bridge.
Okay. How so?
Well, imagine if every time someone proposed a new bridge design, we were all like, nope, too risky. What if it collapses? We'd never get anywhere.
We'd probably still be stuck with those rickety wooden bridges.
Exactly. Those early experiments, even the ones that failed, they taught us valuable lessons that led to the incredible bridges we have today.
So it's about accepting that there are going to be some failures along the way, but those failures are actually part of the learning process.
And they can lead to even greater successes down the line.
It's a bit counterintuitive, isn't it? Instead of trying to predict and control everything, we should just let people experiment and let the market decide what works.
It's like a survival of the fittest for ideas.
Right. But doesn't that raise some concerns? What about all the resources that could be wasted on dead-end ideas?
That's a valid point. And the article acknowledges that there will be missteps and wasted resources. But they argue that the cost of stifling innovation is far greater.
So it's like they're saying that preventing people from even trying is the most expensive filter of all.
Exactly. Because you never know what breakthroughs you might miss out on.
It's a bold stance, for sure. So the article is basically advocating for a more experimental, more hands-on approach to AI development.
Yeah, let the innovators loose, let them get creative and see what they come up with.
And then let the market weed out the ideas that don't work.
It's a messy process for sure, but it might be the best way to unlock the true potential of AI.
But where does skepticism fit into all of this? Isn't it important to have people questioning the hype and pointing out potential pitfalls?
Absolutely. Skepticism is super important. I mean, without it, we'd just be blindly following every shiny new thing that comes along.
Right. We need those critical voices, those people who are willing to ask the tough questions and point out potential problems.
Exactly. In this article, it actually acknowledges the importance of skepticism. Well, that's interesting because they're mostly arguing in favor of hype.
Yeah, but they're not saying hype is the only thing that matters.
Yeah.
They actually make a point of saying that skepticism needs to be balanced.
Okay, I'm curious, how do they see that balance working?
Well, they say that too much skepticism can actually stifle innovation.
That makes sense. I mean, if we're so afraid of failure that we never try anything new, we'll never make any progress.
Right. It's like they're saying that we need to find that sweet spot where skepticism keeps us grounded but doesn't prevent us from exploring new possibilities.
It's a delicate balance, for sure.
It really is. And it's something that we all have to figure out on an individual level. Like, how do we know when skepticism is helpful and when it's holding us back?
That's a great question, and I don't think there's an easy answer.
Yeah, it's probably going to be different for everyone and for every situation.
But I think a good starting point is to ask ourselves why we're skeptical. Like, what are our motivations? Are we questioning the hype because we've carefully considered the evidence, or are we just resistant to change?
Or maybe we're just afraid of the unknown.
That's definitely a factor, too. I mean, change can be scary, especially when it comes to something as powerful as AI.
It is. I mean, this technology has the potential to change everything.
And it's easy to get caught up in those fears, those worst-case scenarios.
Yeah. But the article reminds us that we need to balance those fears with a sense of possibility, with an openness to what AI might be able to achieve.
It's like they're saying, don't let your fear paralyze you. Don't let it prevent you from seeing the potential benefits.
So it's about being mindful of our own biases and motivations.
Exactly. And making sure that our skepticism is rooted in reason and evidence, not just fear or inertia.
But even if we approach skepticism with the right mindset, there's still the issue of those boom and bust cycles we talked about earlier.
Oh, yeah. The hype builds up and then it crashes and then it builds up again. It's like a roller coaster.
It can be a wild ride. And the article seems to suggest that these cycles are a natural part of technological development.
That's interesting. I mean, it makes sense when you think about it. New technologies often come with a lot of hype, and then there's a period of disillusionment as people realize that the reality doesn't quite match the expectations.
Right. But aren't those boom and bust cycles also a sign of inefficiency? Like all that wasted investment and effort, all those projects that start with so much promise and then just fizzle out.
It's true that those periods can be disruptive and they can lead to wasted resources.
Yeah. But the article argues that they also serve an important purpose.
Okay, I'm listening.
They say that these cycles force a kind of reset, a weeding out of unsustainable ventures.
So it's like a natural selection process for ideas.
Exactly. The hype brings in a lot of different ideas, but then the bust forces us to focus on the ones that are actually viable.
And it can redirect capital and talent to those more promising areas.
It's like a forest fire. It might be destructive in the short term, but it also clears out the underbrush and creates space for new growth.
That's a great analogy. Those boom and bust cycles, they're not necessarily a bad thing. They're just a part of the process.
And the article actually quotes an economist named Carlota Perez, who said, "Without conflict, important things do not happen."
Wow, that's a powerful statement.
It is. And I think it applies perfectly to these cycles of hype and skepticism.
It's like a clash between optimism and realism. And it's through that clash that progress emerges.
So maybe those periods of disillusionment, those AI winters, they're not failures.
They're just a necessary part of the journey.
They force us to learn from our mistakes and refine our approach.
And if you look back at the history of technology, you see these cycles playing out again and again. The tronics boom of the 1960s, the dot-com bubble, the various AI winters and summers we've seen, they all follow a similar pattern.
High correction stabilization.
Exactly. It's a dance between optimism and pessimism, between excitement and caution.
So it's not about choosing one over the other.
It's about finding a way for them to coexist, to work together, to drive progress forward.
But where do we as individuals fit into this dance?
Oh, that's a great question. I mean, it's easy to feel like we're just spectators watching all of this unfold from the sidelines.
Yeah, it can feel like these forces are so much bigger than us. Like we don't have any real agency in shaping the future of AI.
But I think that's a misconception. Our individual choices, they do matter.
So you're saying that we're not just along for the ride, that we actually have a role to play.
Absolutely. Even if it doesn't feel like it, our choices have a cumulative effect.
Like all those little ripples in a pond,
Mhm.
eventually they add up to something bigger.
Exactly. So how we choose to engage with AI, how we support its development, how we voice our concerns, all of that contributes to shaping its trajectory.
So it's not just about the big players, the researchers, the investors, the tech giants.
It's about all of us making informed decisions and contributing to the conversation.
But with all this talk about hype and skepticism and boom and bust cycles, it's easy to lose sight of the human element.
Oh yeah, the people whose lives are being impacted by AI.
Exactly. How do we make sure that this technology is developed and used in a way that benefits everyone, not just a select few? It's really easy to get lost in all the technical details and forget that AI is going to have a real impact on people's lives.
It definitely will. And that's something this article really emphasizes. They keep coming back to this idea that AI is a tool.
Okay, so it's not some magical solution to all our problems.
Right. It's not about replacing humans. It's about empowering us.
So the value of AI lies in how we use it.
Exactly. And that's where human ingenuity comes in. We need to figure out how to use this tool effectively to address real-world challenges.
Yeah, because the problems AI could help us solve, they might be things we haven't even thought of yet.
It's like giving someone a new set of tools. They might not know exactly what they're going to build with them, but the potential is there.
And this article, it actually expresses some doubt about AGI. You know, that idea of super intelligent machines taking over the world.
Yeah, it's a popular topic in science fiction, but the article takes a more grounded approach.
They're not saying it's impossible.
But they're also not getting carried away with those predictions.
They're focusing on the practical applications of AI, the things that could make a real difference in people's lives.
And that's where I think things get really exciting. It's not just about automating tasks or making existing processes more efficient.
It's about using AI to solve problems we haven't even fully grasped yet.
It's about pushing the boundaries of what's possible.
So instead of getting caught up in the hype of AI becoming some kind of all-powerful entity,
We should be thinking about how it can be used to address those everyday challenges.
the things that affect our lives in tangible ways.
Right, like improving healthcare, developing sustainable energy sources, creating more accessible education.
So AI as a tool for positive change.
That's the idea. And the article actually talks about the potential for AI to solve unforeseen problems.
Unforeseen problems. So problems we don't even know exist yet.
Exactly. It's like they're saying that AI might surprise us. It might come up with solutions we could never have imagined.
That's kind of mind-blowing when you think about it.
It is. And it really underscores the importance of keeping an open mind about AI. We need to be willing to embrace the unexpected.
Because the possibilities are really limitless.
And that brings us back to the listener. You know, we've been talking about the big picture of AI development, the role of hype, the importance of skepticism.
But what about the individual? Where do we fit into all of this?
That's a great question. And it's easy to feel like we're just along for the ride with something as complex as AI.
Yeah, it can feel overwhelming, like our actions don't really matter.
But that's not true. Our choices, our actions, they have a ripple effect.
So even though we might not be AI researchers or tech CEOs,
Our decisions about how we engage with AI, they do matter.
so what can we do? How can we make a difference?
Well, I think staying informed is a great place to start. There's so much information out there about AI, but it's important to be discerning to separate the hype from the reality.
So don't just believe everything you read,
Exactly. Do your own research, ask questions, think critically.
and be mindful of the choices you make as a consumer.
Right? Like, which companies are you supporting with your purchases? What kind of AI applications are you using?
Those might seem like small decisions.
But collectively, they send a message to the market about what kind of AI we want to see in the world.
So it's about being conscious of the power we have as consumers.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to voice your concerns. If you're worried about the ethical implications of AI, speak up.
Yeah. Talk to your friends and family. Contact your elected officials. Write to the companies developing these technologies.
Because the future of AI is not predetermined. It's being shaped right now by the choices we make.
So it's not just about the technology itself.
It's about the values we embed in that technology.
It's about ensuring that AI is used for good.
And that's something we all have a responsibility to think about.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I think the key takeaway is that the future of AI is not set in stone.
It's a work in progress, and we all have a role to play in shaping it.
So keep learning, keep questioning, and most importantly, keep imagining.
Because the possibilities are truly endless.
That's it for this deep dive. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.